addition to that, on a personal level, I have a daughter with Angelman syndrome who is about to be 9 years old, which is a significant neurogenetic disability. So, reaction to the movie. Tough movie to watch. I won't lie to you from a parent standpoint. From a professional standpoint of being a care provider, a caregiver, and providing services for the elderly, and being passionate about that, and I've spent most of actually all of my career doing that, realizing the importance of doing the right thing for the people we care for the elderly, and take a lot of pride, have a lot of passion about that. And, you know, one thing that struck me about the film, when they were struggling, looking for a place, they were trying to find a good place, and they showed Geraldo, I think it was Geraldo,
Yeah.
Doing an expose about, you know, someone had, an individual had suffered at the hands of a caregiver in some type of institutional setting. And full disclosure, I've run some really great places, and by the way, the Birches is a great place. But I've run some places, inner city places, that certainly have challenges with labor and things like that. Thinking about that, I will share with you, 99% of the people out there working in places that care for the elderly and disabled, in my heart of hearts, I believe we want to do the right thing. They care passionately. It's a hard job. There's a burnout factor, but they care passionately. So that's kind of my professional reaction, if you will, and thinking about, you know, the people we care for every day and their lives and their families. And we're small enough at the Birches, I get to know people on a pretty intimate basis, both our residents and our families. On a personal level, my daughter is 9 years old, or soon to be 9. My wife and I talk a lot about the future. We jokingly say we also have a 14-year-old. We won't empty nest. Trust me, we have plenty we'd love to do. We will not be the kind of couple that dreads empty nest, but we think a lot about, you know, in planning our future and planning our life. You know, our daughter's name is Allie. Where does Allie fit into this picture? I mean, and thinking about where we're going to live, you know, staying in New Hampshire, moving somewhere else, but, you know, career opportunity-wise, and just a quality of life standpoint, how does it fit into Allie? And when we started talking early in our relationship, early with Allie, you know, and when I first got out of college, I worked in a group home for developmentally disabled adults. And there was a couple that came in, and he was an orthodontist. Their son was there, I'll never forget. Their son was probably in his mid to late 40s. And he was an orthodontist, and him and his wife came in. They were the parents of the person we took care of. And they would visit and take their son to dinner every Saturday night. And it struck me, and this was way before I knew I would ever have a child with a disability, it struck me how tired they always looked. And they had taken care of their son. I mean, they were probably in their mid to late 70s. And they had taken care of their son most of their lives. And my wife and I have talked about that story, and, you know, it's like, for us, we want, and, you know, we don't totally know what the future holds. We don't have a crystal ball, as none of us do. But we talk a lot about what we want for Allie, to be as independent as possible and not to be in a situation, you know, we're not going to live forever. And we talk a lot about that, and my friend Maria is here, and I leaned over and told her, and I said, I feel like I have to live forever too sometimes, because I can relate to that, you know, because we talk about, you know, if something happens to us, what happens? You know, we have a 14-year-old, and we don't want him to have to assume that responsibility. And we talk about that too, to take care of his sister, which he's a great kid, he probably will. But we talk about those things. So I think for us, and I'm kind of rambling, but I think for us, even though she's 9, we spend a lot of time thinking about her future. However, sometimes the challenges of having a 9-year-old with a significant disability, all you can do is get through the day. So we deal with it. like to think in this time period, there are a lot more services, there are a lot more opportunities than there were when, when they started out. And there's a lot more awareness and a lot more openness. So we're grateful for that. So it's a tough movie, to be honest with you. It's a tough movie, personally and professionally to watch it. I knew it was going to be, so I'm a board member of the Red River, and also professionally I felt like I needed to do this. But there was part of me that wanted to call Jimmy and say, I'm not doing this. So that's kind of my thoughts. So I'll let my friends here introduce themselves and share their reactions as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Sue Fox. I work at UNH at the Institute on Disability, and I have a 34-year-old daughter who has developmental disabilities and mental health issues. And so I actually watched this beforehand, which I was glad I did. But I got to the point where they were talking about Denton State School, and I was like, I actually had to fast forward to the end. They didn't put her at Denton State School, did they? Because I've worked my whole life to make sure that people with disabilities can be part of the community, live in the community, and this was recent. And I thought, that's really the only option they have is the state school. And not doing what the family said, I don't think that was a great place for her, and I think it wasn't the right thing for either the mother or her. I think it tore the mother up. She became, basically she died. She didn't get the kind of care that her mother had been giving her. So I would hope that very few people would end up with that kind of a choice in this day and age, but obviously it still happens. So I look at that and I think, well, so there was this really kind of unhealthy relationship between the mother and the daughter. Very loving. Obviously they both loved each other dearly, had an incredibly deep love for each other, but the mother kept her dependent on her, so that she was getting something out of that relationship as well. And I think what a disservice to that, to Donna. Donna clearly was somebody who could have been pretty capable and pretty independent in her life, and yet was so dependent on her mother. And then there was no education. I mean, she had to be sent to, she couldn't go to the public school. There was no in-home supports, no family support. There was very little to help Mimi to raise Donna. So, I believe today that there are, and I think that it was nice that you saw the generations in the movie, because you could see that for the sons and then the grandchildren, that they had a very different outlook of what to do and how to support their children so they wouldn't be there. But I think it's a fear for every parent of a child with a disability. You fear you're going to outlive your child, and then what's going to happen. And that's a horrible feeling to have, and I think every parent who has a child with a disability feels that way. I feel lucky. My daughter's in a program and getting supports, and I hope that always continues. But I think that my role as a parent was to make sure she had what she needed to be able to be as independent as she can be. So this movie just made me feel so sad, and the fact that it was so recent, I thought it's just unfortunate. If I could have waved my magic wand, I would have said, get support into the house to provide support to both Mimi and Donna, and let them live together till they die with people in the home to help support them. I can't believe that would be more expensive than putting Donna in an institution. So I hope that we in New Hampshire are more progressive and could come up with better solutions than the outcome in this movie. And it crushed me when Mimi wanted to get out of the car and go get Donna and bring her home. I mean, it was as painful for Mimi to have to give up Donna. So it was a disturbing movie for me, and particularly thinking about my relationship with my daughter and where that can all lead to. So.
I'm Bonnie Dunham. I work at the Parent Information Center. I'm the Special Education Law Policy Director, and so I mostly work with families who have school-age kids, and we really encourage people to get ready for the future, and that's what we've done in our own lives. I have a son who he's 34 also. I almost say 35 because the day of his birthday he starts saying, today I'm 34, soon I will be 35. Guess what, 11 more months till I'm 35. So next week he will be 35, so we can legitimize that. And Sean has Down syndrome. He also has a mitochondrial disorder and a number of health and behavioral issues. He's very funny, he's very gregarious, he has really a strong sense of civic responsibility, and so we're really pleased about that. We joke in our house, sense of humor has saved our lives, I swear, that we're really pleased that we taught him to be such a strong self-advocate, except when he uses it against us. That he likes to break up sticks, and he was breaking up sticks and littering them around the yard. And I said, you need to stop doing that. You can't break up sticks in the yard. It's just not what people do. And he stood up and he stormed in the house and he said, I'm 34 years old and I can play with sticks if I want to. Well, yeah. I said, then if you're 34 years old, you can pick up sticks like I want you to also. So he's like, fine, and picked up the sticks. But when I was watching the movie, I was thinking, I can never leave New Hampshire because, and especially not to go to Texas. Texas did not come off looking good in that movie, nor the other daughter. I feel kind of badly for her because people saw that movie and saw her saying that she felt like she had been living in an abusive relationship because she had a sister with a disability. My daughter adores her brother, always has, and when she was 4, she was on a panel, and someone said, what would happen to you, if your parents died, would you have to take care of your brother when you were older? And she said, he's my brother. That was the end of it. He's my brother. And we've said, we don't expect him to live with you, that's up to you. And she said, I don't know if he would live with me, but, he's my brother. I would always take care of him. I would always make sure he was okay. I would always make sure he was in a good place. And in fact, he's socially connected to her friends. When she was invited to a party not long ago, they said, are you bringing your brother? He's really fun. And they said, remember last year when he brought those handcuffs to the restaurant and we kept handcuffing ourselves to things? I think alcohol probably was a factor. But, that having him be socially connected was so important to us. And in fact, it looked like Donna was pretty easygoing. Our son can be a runner. He can get into trouble. He wandered off to a store recently. We've all been on diets, and he's been doing really great. And he had kind of a rough week, and we found out when he was walking to the mailbox that he was making a side detour to the store next door, and the store owner called us and said, I caught your son stuffing Slim Jims down his pants. And so we had to talk, he had to go back and apologize. And now we time his trips to the mailbox. We know how long it takes. But the storekeeper knows us. He knows him. And he said, why don't we agree? Don't have him do it for a couple of weeks, and then I forgive you now. So that we worked it out. He volunteered for the police department because we wanted them to know him in a positive way. And so they do. They see him around town and they recognize him. We have made sure that in addition to being a good self-advocate, that he does what people his age do. Which means sometimes we have to do things people his age do. He sings karaoke at a local bar every single Friday. And he won't sit with us because we're embarrassing. We're old people. We're embarrassing. And so he sits down with some other guys and they hang out together. Once in a while they arm wrestle for dollars. And he has a great time doing that. And when the Chinese restaurant sold to a new owner, we thought, this is going to be bad. And the new owner came in and he said, hi, I'm Lan. I understand that your son always sings karaoke first, so we're ready for that. Gonna hire a band sometimes, but I'll make sure they know he always gets to sing the first song with them. His bartender left, and the new bartender was hired and said, hi, I understand you always get a poo-poo platter for one while you're here, so don't worry, I'll order it so it's ready when you finish singing your song. And so it's like the entire community knows. When he goes into the restroom, if a stranger goes in, 2 or 3 other customers will go in just to make sure everything's okay, because he belongs there, that's part of his community. When I was watching that, I was thinking, why doesn't Donna have a job? Did she ever have a job? That's what grown-ups do. They have jobs, they volunteer, I'm pretty sure Donna doesn't vote, or never did, and so I think that message of you're not the same as us is one that was given loud and clear, and I think her mom did it out of a sense of love, but I felt badly that many people in her family, and even her extended family, seemed to think that her mom having a good life and Donna having a good life were mutually exclusive. And if that state school was such a dandy place, why didn't they decide to put her mom there? That apparently it wasn't good enough for somebody who had real value like her mom. And so that, I just thought there were lots of kind of subtle messages throughout, but the fact that Donna wasn't really socially connected, and they said, that people in the stores know her, and people around town know her, but as soon as she started wandering off in the store, the mom hauled her back. I mean, because she couldn't really depend on other people to be, just making sure Donna was okay, and that Donna, Donna, can you go get us some milk and come back? No, she had to be right there, and I think it was the protection, because I know people who have older sons and daughters with disabilities who hid them because they believed that the state could come and take them, and that may have been the place her mom was coming from, is, the worry about, do I have the right to, control, and she said, I let her go to school. Well, of course you let her go to school, she was 6, that's what you do when you're 6. And then I thought, what a luxury we have in New Hampshire to, I knew from the time our son was born that people with disabilities had the right to go to school. They had a right to work with the supports that they needed. They had a right to live in their family and to live in the community. Sean still lives with us because he wants to, and we want him to. He lives on the 2nd floor, he has the whole 2nd floor to himself, and he has a cell phone. And he'll call downstairs once in a while and say, do we have any ice cream? I'm gonna come down for some ice cream in a few minutes. And if we call him to say dinner's ready, then he'll answer the phone to say, hello, my apartment, may I help you? Because he's really firm on this is his apartment, he has autonomy, and don't try to touch his stuff or, get into his stuff. And so I'm really pleased about that. I think in addition to planning for the future, which we have done, not as much as I'd like, because while I'm fully in complete recognition that someday my husband will die, I'm not quite so sure about myself yet. I'm not quite willing to go there yet. So, we've talked with our daughter. She has a plan. She's connected to an adult service provider who we work with, and they've said, call, if anything happens to your parents, you call me and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do to make sure that you don't get kind of tricked into having to have your brother live with you forever. But she also knows how the systems work, and I'm eternally grateful to the people who closed Laconia State School. I'm eternally grateful to the people who advocated for the systems that we have in place now, and see my responsibility to keep on going. And I think that's one of the ways that we make sure that he has the life that he wants. So we ask him, we constantly double check, are we doing what, is this what you want to do? Do you still want to go sing karaoke every Friday? Do you, what's important to you? And so we get that feedback, and even if we don't ask, he tells us. But we also make sure that with our votes, with our advocacy, that we work really hard to make sure that the systems that we have don't backslide. Maintaining the status quo is good. I'd like to go forward, but there have been many years when glad to just maintain the status quo. So that I think lots of people dropped the ball. It was disappointing that no agency or advocacy advocacy organization or anybody ever contacted them and said, the choices aren't keep Donna at home and be 100% responsible and baby her, or put her away and not be able to go see her for 30 days. I'm pretty sure that was a rule, that you can't, because she said it's been 30 days, that there are lots of things in between there. You know, you could, like Sue said, bring in home supports into the home so that you can continue living the life that you want, or enhanced family care. Lots of different options that could have been explored, but since they didn't go out and discover them on their own, apparently nobody felt obliged to tell them or to help with that journey, because it's a scary one, and especially because the mom was doing a lot of it on her own.
A couple of things you said struck a chord with me that I remembered as well, that the family kept saying they didn't know what Donna was thinking or feeling, and I thought, oh my God, of course you can tell what she's thinking and feeling. She's either looking upset, or she's angry, or it's maybe she couldn't express it in words, but she certainly was expressing how she was feeling. And I think that's what people forget, is that there are many ways to be able to tell how someone is thinking or feeling. The other thing that I would like to point out, because the fact that, the cousin said that Marilee had been in this abusive situation because of having a sister with a disability who was always kind of in it. I have two other children, and they're younger than my daughter with a disability, and I always worried, because my daughter had all really significant behavior issues with her mental health issues, and had some really bizarre behaviors and actually hurt the other two, and I thought, what have we done, and this is going to be so bad for these kids. Both of my kids, who are now both adults as well, are the most empathetic, wonderful, caring people. My youngest daughter is in the Peace Corps, and I think they both are the people they are today because of their sister. And I know my son, even in junior high and high school, when it's really hard to stand up for people, when kids were bullying kids at school with disabilities, he always stood up and said, my sister has a disability, don't say that, don't do that. And so it doesn't have to be a liability to the other siblings in the house.
And if I may kind of tandem under that, Josh, our 14-year-old, is great, and my kids are significantly younger than your kids, so I'm kind of at a different point. With this, Josh is 14, and my wife and I joke, which one is the greatest challenge, the 14-year-old or the 8-year-old with the disability, because all the teenage angst. With that said, though, Josh is a great big brother, loves his sister. There was a situation where he went to middle school last year where he saw a kid with a disability being taken into a private room. I'll leave the details out. Josh was very upset about that. He came home and told my wife that room no longer exists now. He's very focused on, it shapes who he is as a very compassionate, loving young man. And he's a great big brother. And I always joke, Allie has Angelman's. And I'm like, what, big deal. She has little Angelman's. Josh is probably melodramatic, we all got our stuff. I'm like, what, I don't really care, call her whatever you want, she just needs a little extra help. So that's kind of our view of, and to all your points, it is kind of stunning that there was no options available. There was no services. We have services, and I'll be honest with you, we've had great results with services, and then we've had some services that it's like, well, will that happen, let's get rid of them. So it's kind of, overall we feel very blessed to live in New Hampshire, actually.
I was curious as I was watching where the medical community was in all of this, that nobody in the medical community said to the mother, this is what you need to do. That social services, as far as I could tell, weren't a part of the picture, and I don't know if that was because of the personality of seemed very resistant to any kind of support or change, so I can see that, you know, there may be a story there that she turned down.
And maybe the mom was scared too, but they'll take my daughter. I mean, who knows?
Well,
You
she
know,
was also
from-
one time when someone said,
1916.
That's what that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, 1916, she was born the year before John F. Kennedy, so a lot of history, different world.
It seemed that there was a failure on the part of the family, but there was also a failure on the part of the society.
system,
That should have been there to
absolutely.
support the family.
Absolutely.
Something should have happened, you know, decades and decades ago,
Right.
to help the family make the changes that they needed to make.
Certainly.
And to prepare her
Yeah.
to
There
grow
was a
up and
failure
be
of the
more
education,
independent. Yeah.
the educational community, it was a failure of the medical community, it was a failure of social services, it was a failure of the family. It was just a big old failure all the way around.
Certainly 60-something and 90-something is not the time to start planning.
Right.
That's where catastrophic
But
It's like,
I'm a former special education teacher, and I just think of, you know, all of the points that are put into place to help families deal with their children, and, you know, this is back in the 80s, and I know it was different in the 50s and the 60s. But this family was struggling in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, and, you know, the systems are in place now, and there are programs for adults with disabilities, and there are programs to bring home care in, and there are CACL-like arrangements to make with adults that need an advocate, and I'm just as surprised that just none of that happened.
Right.
Can I share my story? My name is Maria. Chuck knows me. Jemmy knows me. I feel from this documentary, I mean, I'm a weepy mess anyway usually, but the person I related to most was Marilee, because I have, my father remarried and had 2 more children with his wife. So my younger brothers are 13 and 14 years younger than me. The youngest of the 2 has genetic disorder and is also autistic. And his older brother, I never lived with them because I lived with my mom and I was kind of out of the house by that point, but the older of the 2, Andrew, I think has some undiagnosed mental disorders. Their mother died when they were both around 10 or 11 years old. And he and his younger brother, conversely to you guys, it's a very abusive relationship between the 2 of them. I think that Andrew is very nasty to Matthew and very unaccepting and has got his own issues and is incapable of empathizing and sympathizing and ever really taking care of his younger brother, and actually is damaged. It's been damaging to both of them. But now I'm in a position where at some point Matthew, my youngest brother, who has disabilities, is going to be in my care, and I'm, you know, Chuck and I have spoken a lot about this. I'm trying to set the stage for when he's in my care. My father's 72 years old, but to speak to Mimi also, like, I'm trying to get my father, they live in New York, they have a nice situation, they've got their system. My brother's 24 now and my father's 72, they've got their life, they've got their routines, they go to the yard sales, they do yoga, they do Zumba, they do, not my father, but my brother, but they, you know, my father does well keeping my brother in the community. However, I think my father has hit a wall in what he's able to do. I think my brother is much more capable, but to get my father to move to New Hampshire and get my brother in my community is like beating my head against a brick wall, you know, and I can't force my father to help. Like, no, there must have been, you know, Mimi, people might have approached Mimi over the years, and she's just like, no, it's working, no, and my father doesn't see any care besides either him taking care of my brother or me hiring somebody to come live with us to take care of him. And I just don't feel like that's the best thing for my brother. You know, I'll take care of him, but I just don't think that that's the most beneficial for him. I think he'd be better off in an arrangement with other adults, or I don't know, but I just feel bad for Marilee here. I never felt abused, and because I was out of the house, but I'm sure my other younger brother does. And just being the person trying to help my father, and I can't do anything, my hands are tied. But at some point this is gonna be my responsibility. and now my father's not helping me to be prepared, because he's comfortable.
We've started doing more shared decision making where if a major decision needs to be made, then my daughter, my son, and us will sit down and talk about it together so that everybody's contributing to the discussion. And often the end result is not one that any of us would have made our first option. You know, it's often a combination of those. We also started quite a few years ago, and he spends 2 nights a week at his job coach's house. I mean, 2 nights a month, I'm sorry, it is 2 nights a week, wow, 2 nights a week, a month at his job coach's house. And we, we really enjoy having that overnight by ourselves, but it's not as much fun when he's not there. And when he comes back, he always says, I really missed you, but I did this and I did that. And he flies to Florida every other year on his birthday week, because then he's calculated he gets 2 parties to visit my sister for a week. And we've set it up. Southwest apparently has the best sense of humor, that if we put him on and gets to the other end and she meets him, and so he gets to have that independence, so that he knows that he's okay when he's not right in our house. And we know that there are multiple different people that are capable of supporting him, and if they can. He went to Kenya with a previous job coach years ago for 4 weeks. Actually ended up being 5 weeks, because they wanted to. And so we really tried to take some risks, but really calculated risks. He's a blonde kid with Down syndrome. We thought he was pretty easy to find if he got lost in Kenya. But I think that's a piece that, because the supports weren't there, that family was really reluctant to take those risks, because they were risks that could have been catastrophic to them, because the support system wasn't there. We have consumer-directed services. We decide what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and so on. And in that case, it was like, you have this or you have that. That's it. And even for this, you've got a 5-year waiting list. I mean, a 5-year waiting list for a horrid situation, I can't imagine such a thing.
But sad that a lot of decisions are made, especially I see this a lot with elderly clients, in almost a crisis mode. It takes something to precipitate, all of a sudden a family member can't take care of, I get calls, and this is not how, I need to bring my mom to you this afternoon. Well, A, I don't have a place, and B, if I did, I needed full information, can't just drop her off, So that's, a lot of times, sadly, it's, that's how decisions play out.
I would say, Chairman, I don't know your whole situation, but I wouldn't jump to moving him to New Hampshire. New York actually has way more funding for services.
Yeah.
And I would look to what's over there that you could start to transition, plan for and transition there.
But I would be very far away.
So if you would prefer to have him here, that's different, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
just as far, I want him to be somewhere where he is comfortable and happy and is supported and enriched, but I wouldn't be able to see him on a weekly basis. I wouldn't be able to be a part of his life.
But do you
The
see him on a
same way.
weekly basis now?
No.
Yeah, and I think it's, I
That's a
think
good point.
it's that
Don't be so hard
conundrum
on
that
yourself.
you wanna be there physically to support, but I think that, as parents of kids, as parent of kids that aren't special needs, I knew at one point you gotta let them go, and you've gotta let them take risks. And I think for your father, I think the conversation has to have, okay, it's working now, you're 75, what happens when you're 85?
Oh,
What happens when you're 95, and is,
very candid.
because I think one of the saddest scenes in the film was when they dropped her off at the home, and she looked devastated. I got the feeling she'd never been left
Right,
alone
right.
before.
Never
My
transitioned.
father is setting, and that's why this
64
movie
years
can
of
be
never
so much
being
like
left to ride.
my
That-
father is setting
No
himself up for the
transition.
same situation.
Yeah, maybe show them the film.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
A couple of days break here and there is a way to test the waters to know it's okay, that it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
That, I think testing the waters like they did, put your family member in a horrid situation, then, of course, the next time she said, I wanna bring her home with me because it was a bad situation.
For
We're
both of them.
fortunate that
in that
Depends on
community.
everybody.
It
Yes.
doesn't just mean like, oh,
Not
it's
testing,
just,
we're doing it.
overnight, or there, I'm sure there are programs.
Testing didn't like it.
But my father's terrified, 72 years old, he's old school. You know, I think he's got that same mentality.
Yeah.
Like, it's either gonna be with me or in a horrible
Because
situation.
nobody else is gonna take care of them like I do.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to be the next person in line and be up against that. So I really felt for Marilyn. Yeah. Tough one to watch.
I recognized you. I was in your educational advocate course.
Oh, hi.
Well, almost 20 years ago.
Oh.
Long time ago.
Yes. We are all
When you
getting
said
older.
your name, I was like, oh yeah.
That's right. Yes, he's still funny.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, is that sometimes things go wrong and we just say, it happens, and then let's try it again. I mean, we don't get it right all the time, but, you know, fortunately, there are enough safety nets out there, and we have a system of safety nets in New Hampshire that gives us some level of security, that we have room to make some mistakes. I think in some places that doesn't exist. And so one of the things that family should do is go to the legislature and say, those choices are not acceptable, we need to do something different. But it's hard to do that while you're dealing with that crisis at the same time. And well, they were saying, well, Donna doesn't really know what's going on. When someone said, what are we gonna do about the Donna situation? Pretty sure Donna probably had an idea that she was not, you know, the most valued person at the table at that moment. And what a sad message to get.
The other thing the way we're talking, it sounds like, New Hampshire is like the euphoria for
Oh, no.
disability services.
Always want more better.
We've got, and we have, our share of problems with services here, but I have to say, watching that, I watched that and I said, oh, thank God I live in New Hampshire. So comparatively, we have really fabulous systems. They're underfunded, there's a lot of changes that need to happen. As you said, you get some good providers, you get some awful providers. Nothing's perfect, but boy, I've watched that, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm glad I'm here.
Years ago, I was in a project where I traveled to 26 other states and spent 3 days in each state doing some training and meeting with families and so on. And in every state, I would come home and it became a running joke because I would say, that's another state we can never move to. While we were trying to get our son, who cognitively, reads, writes at kindergarten level probably, we were trying to get him into a college prep English class so that he could appreciate literature, be engaged in dialogue. I talked to a person in Tennessee whose son seemed pretty similar to mine. They were trying to get the timeout box in the special ed wing unlocked. And I thought, it's like we're not even on the same planet. And if they unlocked the box, still kept the box in the special ed wing, which alone freaked me out, then that would have been progress for them. So I think seeing that and in fact, I would love to have them see some videos of what's happening in other states and for us to be able to learn from other states that are doing some things better than we are, so that, we can take advantage of that and make things better across the board.
And to reiterate that, we go to a fundraiser every year in Chicago for Angel and Syndrome. And you get seated, about 300 people there, and you get seated with people randomly, so you don't know it's the table sits. And so we were sitting there, and it was somebody from 2 couples from Oklahoma. And we were sitting there, and I'm not always a patient person, and I tend to say what I think. And they said, well, our daughter goes to the handicap school. And they kept saying the handicap school. And I was like, get me out of here. I can't be in this situation anymore, so I had to move tables, because I have no patience for that. I mean, our daughter is fully included in school, and we're very fortunate that. My wife works very hard and fights for that and advocates for that, and is an amazing person for that. But it is quite a difference. New Hampshire's not perfect, and even, professionally, when I look at job opportunities and things, the first question I ask is, well, what's the service? What's this state? Because I don't care how much money it is, if it's not good for Alex, it's not going to be good for her. So.
I think one of the things we have in New Hampshire, and I'm sure that in some other states as well, is that while things aren't perfect, there's a pretty big community of family members of adults with disabilities, especially the, adults with disabilities who previously lived in Laconia State School, who are willing to stand up and say, that's not okay, and who can come together to try to promote better and different things, whereas in some other states, I think families and people with disabilities are sometimes not as well connected to each other. And so you have one person screaming, this is not okay, and nobody else knows that what's even happening, that I think we're pretty well organized here, which is really, really helpful.
I would love to get tapped into that crowd.
It's a nice crowd.
Yeah.
I was curious, you were in her class, what are you doing now?
Well, I have a daughter that's severely dyslexic, so I was having trouble with the school system, so I called up the Parent Information Center, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's an unbelievable resource for education, for everything, as far as parents go. And what I did was, I got into Bonnie's educational advocate to learn to be an advocate for her, and in turn, I was able to let her be an advocate for herself, and she did great. She's 25 now, and doing fairly good.
So good for you.
Yeah.
But that's what I think for families, we know even professionally can't do it all, and so, building that network of other people out there who can then, kind of spread it out more means that you have all of these people out here who have more information, more resources that can have
Well,
that
that was the
impact.
key, the information, getting that information.
I have to say, and this is speaking to the Institute for Disabilities at UNH, I think one of the reasons why New Hampshire is where it is because of the work that's done at the Institute. I have lived in a couple of other states, and the Institute really goes above and beyond when it comes to bringing communities together, when it comes to advocacy. I think you guys do an amazing job. And I think that you should get much more praise than you do.
I appreciate that, thank you.
I think it also helps that we have 400 some odd legislators, and so everybody knows someone, and you get
Right.
get to know your family member and
Yes,
then
that's
stand
the
up with
legislature,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the fact that New Hampshire is so community oriented and that we do have 100 plus legislatures, and some of them are dealing with whatever issue you're dealing with, there's probably somebody serving in the state
Quite a few of
legislature
them,
that's dealing with that issue too. And if you can tap into that, you can affect change. Whereas in a state like Texas, which is so huge, and top down in terms of how things are organized, which is why state schools are still in place in some of those southern states. You don't have that local advocacy, and you get lost, I think, in the crowd. I come from North Carolina, and North Carolina is notorious for its state schools. And it took an awful lot of breaking apart to put systems back into place that were supportive as opposed to being what was happening in Devon State School. And it was because of that kind of that top-down organization and assembly line treatment. So I'll say one thing about New Hampshire and its local control, that sometimes it really does work.
The isolation that the family found themselves in, and to some extent, surrounded themselves with, it seems like it prevented Donna from having so many experiences, not only working. My first thought is, why doesn't she have a job? Because our son has worked and volunteered since he was old enough to, because that's, he knew. In fact, when he said, too tired, I won't go to work today, and I said, if I have to work, you have to work. And he's, good point. But that the volunteering and the not always being the recipient of other people's goodwill, but not always being taken care of, but giving to others. When Sean has volunteered at Meals on Wheels, he would come home and say, no old people starved to death today. I was there. And so he knows that he's an important member of the community, that other people depend on him. And so then when he needs help from somebody else, he doesn't mind taking it because everyone needs help. You know, that whereas Donna saw herself as only the recipient of other people's goodwill.
Yeah, it was something that was troubling for me, is I lived across the street from the school, an elementary school, with
And she
kids
got
and
kicked out of it.
activity and,
Yeah, she got
yeah,
kicked out of it.
she got kicked out of it, but that was, back in the 1950s.
Right.
That school has been there for decades, and the schools
Or
are
a
just
Hub
vibrant.
of a community.
Hub of the
Right,
community, they've
yeah.
got plays and, fairs and all kinds of things going on, and I just got the impression that that they stayed in that house. And they watched The Price is Right, and they watched The Wheel of Fortune, and they kept their little notebooks. I just think it was just, somebody from the outside needed to be able to come in and just diagnose how wrong that relationship was, because I think both of them showed some signs of autism, the mother and the daughter, with their notebook tracking of the game shows and the puzzle making.
Obsessive.
Yeah. So it's almost like they fed off
Yeah.
fed off of each other.
Oh, it was a very
It was-
unhealthy
yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
so.
I think it was beyond codependency too, they were just parasites on it.
Well, it wasn't a healthy relationship, and, after 65 years, if it's the one they wanted, then find a way to make it happen, like you said, find a way to, bring in what supports you needed, and since
They
Meryl
needed,
Lou or whoever she was didn't seem interested in participating, bring in professionals, bring in, other entities that could make that happen.
At 90 and 60, you weren't gonna fix the relationship.
Right.
And so then to split it up seemed almost cruel.
I
that
always
they
think it was
both
there needed to
really
be like a
needed each other.
CASA for older people, where you can have somebody from the outside come in.
But you almost wonder if Mimi would allow that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You almost think she was just so dependent
Yeah.
on Donna.
Could've brought Vanna White in.
She did that.
But at the point where she was, where she was being compelled to place her somewhere, at that
But I
point,
think that came
at-
from the outside.
right, but
It
at that
came
point,
from-
either we need to look at placing her somewhere, or we can see if we get some supports in here for you. Bringing supports in might have suddenly seemed wicked attractive.
Absolutely.
If nobody else has anything, and I'm sure these two would stick around for a few minutes if you want to talk, but my cards are out on the table, and if you want to get in contact with one of them, I have the emails and things, and you're welcome to just email me, and I'll put you in contact. But I want to thank you, the three of you. You were very special and perfect for this film. Thank you.
Thank